Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. About 4 or so years ago, the SNP commissioned an internal report, and it was trying to find out and establish how long it would take an independent Scotland to be able to join the EU. That is to say, a Scotland that had given up having a major voice in the United Kingdom to join an organisation in which it would have no voice whatsoever and would have no input on the laws that were being imposed upon it. Well, it turns out it wasn't a good answer, and so they hid it. They buried it deep, and even refused freedom of information requests to publish this report. Well, eventually the Information Commissioner has said that they must, and so they did, and it doesn't make good reading. You see, the report says it could take up to 8 years for the SNP to join the EU. That means 8 years being outside of the United Kingdom, therefore having a trading barrier and a hard border. And then a further 8 years before it gets into the EU, where it may have a soft border with the EU, but there's still an even harder border with its biggest trading partner. What's it going to do for those 8 years? Well, not a lot. But even the 8 years, and we will get into this in the piece, but even the 8 years is a massive spin. It is horrendous what they're proposing. So we'll go into this, we'll have a look, and you can see why the last thing Scotland wants is independence with this bunch who would like to take you into the EU. It's madness. Here you go. So, Skexit disaster for the SNP. It wouldn't be anything else, would it? As officials admit, it could take 8 years to join the EU. The Scottish Government became embroiled in a 4-year secrecy battle over its refusal to publish a time frame for an independent Scotland to join the EU. Now, this 8 years, don't be thinking it means 8 years. It doesn't mean 8 years. It really doesn't, and we'll see why in a minute. The SNP have been dealt a killer blow in their hopes to break up the UK and join the European Union, as officials privately admitted it could take up to 8 years for Scotland to be accepted. The Scottish Government were finally forced to publish analysis it commissioned about a time frame for joining the bloc. Documents regarding this were released on Thursday following a 4-year transparency battle where the SNP executive claimed the papers were irrelevant to how long it would actually take the country to join. But they still tried to keep them secret anyway until the Scottish Information Commissioner ruled that there was a public interest in publishing them, and so they very grumpily and against their best wishes had to publish them. They legally had to publish them, but they really didn't want to, because they have been spinning. Excuse me while I deal with my wires here. For some reason, it's gone trapped. They have been spinning this line of basically bullshit, EU bullshit. Oh, we can be in 3 years. It's never going to happen. Never going to happen. No country has ever joined in that short a time frame, especially one. Never mind one that's got so many problems. Anyway, Humza Yousaf based almost his entire citizen document on rejoining the European Union, something that is so unlikely to happen. This included changing the passport colour to burgundy and using EU embassies for trapped Scottish citizens abroad. But this argument will fall apart if it takes 8 years to join. Officials write in the analysis, an independent Scotland would be in a distinctive position of having already been part of the EU through the UK's membership. The speed of the negotiation and ratification process is contingent on political will, the final agreed Brexit position agreed for the UK, the nature of Scotland's exit negotiations from the UK, and any competing priorities the EU may have at that time. That last line is, think Catalan. Think, Spain not wanting Catalan to go independent. The last thing it will do is allow Scotland to join after getting independence from the UK, because that will only strengthen and further the Catalan independence call. And Spain are just going to veto it regardless of what they say. And Spain are probably not the only ones who would veto it. And that is only when you get to the point of actually doing the application. And also all the other positions are all going to be very, very complex. The further the final Brexit deal diverges from the current status quo, the more complex the process may become for Scotland. The best case scenario for Scotland would involve a total timeline of 3 to 4 years, and the upper limit could be up to 8 years, based on Scotland acceding to the EU from third country status. Now, before we go any further, in order to achieve membership, they're saying that they have to put the formal application in. Now, to put the formal application in means they have to put in the informal application first, what is known as the notary, I think it's called a notary primary application. It's something like that. It's one of those typical bureaucratic terminologies. And what happens is you put the notary primary application in, and they say, fine, we'll take this and we'll take this on board, and we will put you in the ready to join and have the discussions to join pile. But what you have to do as a country, Scotland, is align yourself with our entry requirements. And so you must have a minimum GDP. You must have a maximum public debt per head of population. You must have this. You must align that. Your banks must run on the same banking system as EU banking rules, not the ones that run under UK banking rules. And so automatically any Scottish bank cannot freely trade with any English bank. It will deem to be foreign banks. Even if Scotland went independent and stayed outside the EU, if they kept their banking system the same, then there would be no problem in dealing across the border with the banks. But the moment they bring in the EU banking rules, there is minimum holdings, for example. There is minimum and different reporting standards. There's all sorts of different ways in which money gets across, how you check for this, how you do your money laundering, all sorts of different rules. And those rules are not compatible with UK rules. And so instantly that you do that, UK banks and Scottish banks operate on a different set of rules, which means maximum changes in charges. Also, and this is the killer, you cannot use the pound. You would have to issue your own currency, the Scottish pound, because you cannot, under EU rules, no country in the EU can use as their base currency a non-EU currency. Now, you could use the Norwegian, I think Norway is euro. What is it? The Danish kroner. You could use that, and I think Sweden retains its own currency and things like that. But these are there, so you can use them because they are EU currencies. You can still also use the Swiss franc, because the Swiss franc, although Switzerland is not EU, it is deemed EU compliant for things like that. So you can use that, and of course you can use the euro. Or you are free to issue the new Scottish pound, and that's fine as well. So you can do that. The trouble is, of course, again, the moment you issue the Scottish pound, its value is not the same as the UK pound. And of course the UK banking system will not prop up your banks. And so all you could find is, all of a sudden, the Scottish pound is only worth 60p of an English pound. So you go into a shop and it'll be, that'll be £4.20 please. And where an Englishman would pay £4.20 in English notes, you would have to be paying something like, £8 or £6.50 or something. And you would go, well, that's very expensive all of a sudden. These are the rules. So before you get to the point, it could take you 8, 10, 50, 20 years to get Scotland to the point where it then goes into full application, and then a further 8 years. It could be that no one in the Scottish government today would still be alive by the time the Scots got EU membership. That's how long it can take. Turkey have been at it for 30 odd years. They're still not at the primary application stage because they refuse to give up a lot of things and say, no, we want this. And they're going, well, you have to have that. No, we're not having that. And so Turkey is in a position where it doesn't want to give up some things, but the rules to join are that you have to give them up. what's Scotland to do? It's never going to join the EU. It can't afford to. It doesn't have the resources, and it doesn't have the currency backing. And that's the problem. And of course, Hamza Yousaf, knows this. He absolutely knows this. And so there's no way. There's no way. And this is why he didn't want. It's why he didn't want to ever publish this, because getting back into the EU was his main drive for independence. But it just isn't going to happen. But I mean, they've been publishing and wasting lots and lots of money on this, on all these prospectuses. Oh, what we'll do here, what we'll do there. The last one was all about citizenship, based on joining the EU. There are children born today that will never see an independent Scotland in the EU. That also stop and come up. But it is funny, isn't it, that these people are so deluded, they're basing everything they can on a fairy tale. Trouble is, it's costing a lot of money while they're doing it. Anyway, coming up. You don't have to be a genius to see that there is a reason why they hid this report. They're saying 8 years, but that's 8 years once they've met the criteria. And they know there's no way you can hit those criteria. Not in 10, 15, 20 years. And seriously, do you think Scotland is going to be sitting there and inventing its own Scottish pound? It'll have to create a national bank, have to create an office of international credit. It'll have to create a financial standards office. It needs to man all these things. It needs to then print the actual cash. Where's it going to get the money to put into it? International debt. It's a fantasy, a fairy story. It's what Hamza Yousaf must tell his children at night as he's putting them to bed. Here, once upon a time there was an independent Scotland that joined the EU. But let me tell you, that particular fairy tale doesn't end and they all lived happily ever after. That was my dog coming in. It ends and they all died horribly of hunger. Man's a buffoon. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, you'll never see Scotland in the EU while my arse is pointing downwards. Bye.